Hey everybody, give me 1 second. I forgot to add, promised we would do this live on Facebook as well. So we are now live on YouTube. Uh-oh. Just log into Facebook so we can be everywhere with everyone. Go. Okay. There we go. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. Okay. So, all right. Today we are talking about traction. Before we dive into that, I just have to go over a few quick announcements, do a quick intro, and then we can dive into the meat of this topic that is sometimes confusing. If you have any questions about traction, go ahead and start to prepare them now. You can even start to drop them into the comments box now, and I will start answering them after I go over a few key pieces of information for anyone who doesn't know what traction is. So first off, a few quick announcements. This is a live Q&A. It is recorded and it will live on the respective platforms, so on Facebook and YouTube, as well as in the Molo9 repository. This does, however, also mean that if you are not a rapid growth company whose strategies and roadmap are constantly adjusting as you grow, you may want to be careful with the information that you share when asking your questions during this live Q&A session. So if you want to deep dive into the details so I can give you more custom tailored advice, we do have one-on-ones and small group coaching sessions, both available. We dropped the link in so you have that. Where are my comments? There we go. There we go. Okay, and then along these same lines, today I will probably use some examples I've witnessed throughout my career. I can only either share the details or the company name. I cannot do both, as this would be a breach of contract with MD9 clients. Lastly, for those of you who don't know who I am and the types of questions you can ask, I'm going to do a quick intro so that you know which types of questions I'm best equipped to answer. If you have a question that I am not equipped to answer, just hop over to our Facebook group, drop your questions in there. Molo9 is used by a lot of marketing agents, but also a lot of first-time founders. So if you're somebody who's new to the marketing space and you have a question that I can't answer in today's Q&A, or you have a question that you run into while you're using the platform, you can always hop into the Facebook group and ask the question in there, because there are a lot of marketing agency owners that are using Molo9 that are happy to jump in and answer your questions if and when I can't. Okay, so now, who am I and why are we here? My name is Soozin, and I have spent the past decade, well, more than a decade now, about 12 years, working doing something called growth hacking, and my specialty is something very niche called blitz scaling. Basically, this means that I specialize in growing companies very quickly, so achieving traction for companies very early on. And as of now, the fastest I've grown a company is from idea on paper to more than 108 million in sales in less than 5 years. And the reason that companies use something like blitzscaling is because sometimes you launch in a very competitive either marketplace, like local environment, or in a very competitive industry or niche. And when that's the case, you do have to grow rather quickly so that your competitors don't kill you before you get a chance to actually have your company out there helping people. I now own 5 companies and brands that are all geared towards helping startup founders. I do play with more than 100 different customer acquisition channels. And I also look at the whole funnel when looking at growing a company. I don't just look at, okay, we want leads or we want website conversions. I look at how people are making their way through the whole funnel and how long we're retaining them for. I usually don't start celebrating an acquisition until we've gotten them to a specific retention point. That's just my way of looking at things. So, all right, what is traction? Traction is another way of saying crossing the chasm. You're trying to cross a chasm. So, but this I'm referring to a very technical term. It's called the diffusion of innovation theory. I promise that is the most complex marketing term I am going to use, marketing phrase I'm going to use today. I'll try to keep it easy for everyone to follow. But the diffusion of innovation theory, basically, it just tells you how new startups and new thought leaders get adopted by society. What's really interesting about humans is first, we're animals, and second, we're these logical beings. So we have certain things that our brains are just naturally wired to look for, and certain things that we use logic to kind of override and say, no, like, don't worry, this makes sense, and lead our whole body into whatever experiences we want to be a part of. So with the diffusion of innovation theory, it talks about how basically, as a human, it's very natural for you to be skeptical of new things. That's totally normal, very natural. It's a protection mechanism. Lots of animals are equipped with the same exact mechanism. And if you're a marketer that's trying to get people to adopt something new, it can be difficult to get people to adopt it because by nature we are born with this mechanism that wants to protect us from new and unsure, like new things that we're not certain of. So you have people within certain niches who will get very excited about something and they'll be the first to adopt it, even if it's new, because it's something that excites them. People who are drawn to adopt new and exciting innovations, they aren't necessarily like that everywhere. They're usually like that in a few places. So an example, when it comes to medical innovations, I am the last person to jump on board. When it comes to like the vaccinations, my husband was like, oh, we should sign up first. It was like, no, I want that tested on a lot of people, like thousands of people before I go get it shot up in my arm. But then I have friends who were the first in line to get the COVID vaccine. Another example might be like supplements, like smart drugs. You see people like Tim Ferriss and Dave Asprey, when these smart drugs came out that were over-the-counter supplements that could help you enhance your brain's functionality, capacity. They were the first ones out there to try them and test them. I waited until they tried and tested them along with a few hundred other people before I started testing them myself. But now when you come up with like something within within other niches that I'm interested in, I might be one of the first people in line to go and try that. My cousin is a great example of a specific early adopter. So when Google Glasses came out, he was one of the first people to buy a pair. When the iPad came out, I think he bought one of the first few thousand iPads that were sold in the town we grew up in. When the first iPhone came out, he was one of the people sitting in line. And then you have people that just wait a little bit longer. So the difference between those people that are first in line to buy something and the people that wait until it's been tried, that space right there is called the chasm. And what can happen is you bring your startup to this small niche community. They love it. They think it's awesome. It's incredible. But then you're missing a few key elements, and the rest of the majority, the early majority that's supposed to adopt what you created in order for you to keep getting that growth, they don't. And so you end up stuck with this small niche community that's using your product. And for some people, their companies can survive on that. And for other people, their companies aren't built for that. They built their companies expecting hundreds of thousands of users, and so their companies die. So what we're going to look at right now is 90% of startups die, and it's because they don't get across this chasm, this space between the early, the innovative people who are super into trying everything, being the first to try everything, and the early majority. Let me see, sorry. Okay, so there comes this pivotal moment where your startup has to adjust your offerings, and you have to make sure that your online presence follows certain parameters in order to easily make that jump. You can, if you know the game, you can very easily make this jump. If you don't know the game, that's why 90% of the startups die before they achieve traction. Okay, so there's two things that go into making it easy for you to make this jump from the early innovators to the early majority. Sorry, I just realized there's a double box. Oh, there we go. So the two things are, one, how your online presence looks at this point, because while your friends and family who are really into your niche might have just grabbed whatever you were offering based on a simple sign-up form and one-page checkout, the early majority is a little bit more skeptical. These people are a little bit more risk-averse. They're not going to jump in on that. So your online presence has to be adjusted to cross the chasm, and you have to have modified your offer at this point to cross the chasm. Okay, so by online presence, I'm referring to basically everything that I cover in my pre-launch playbook. The reason I use this launch playbook, like this process to launch companies, is because it not only gets you your first few founders, it gets you across the chasm to the point where you can achieve where you have everything in place to be appealing to the early majority so that it's easier to achieve traction. I'll drop the link into the playbook here so that you guys have it. All right. So one thing that's very easy to look at is just having your crucial website content up. While your innovators, people who are super excited, super into your niche, might not necessarily want to see all of your legal documents and legal information. People who are the early adopters, they're risk-averse people. So they'll want to see things like your privacy policy, your terms of use, your terms of service, things like that, your cookie policy. There are a lot of little things that you may very, very easily, do not beat yourself up for this. It may be very easy to forget when you're a first-time founder and you're having to juggle all of these crazy demands at the same time. It's super easy to forget oh, I needed to put an about page. Oh, I needed to add this page and that page. So I just have this checklist here, really easy to go through. I think you could do it in a day, maybe 2 days, if it's just you by yourself. But there is a list of crucial website content. That list of crucial website content, it doesn't only help you to get the early majority to trust your business, it also helps you with your search engine rankings. So it is a double whammy. You also have things like people looking for whether or not you have testimonials and use cases up. And here's, if you don't have at least 3 testimonials on your homepage or use cases up, this is one process to get them, and here's another process. Oh, if you're tuning in from Facebook, I'm sorry, the links can only be dropped into YouTube. You have to hop over there to get the links. Where is it? Here we go. So here's another process that's used to collect reviews from people. It's basically using incentives to get people to leave you reviews so that you can have the necessary amount of reviews published to your website to be able to get early majority coming to your site and not being as skeptical. They see the testimonials and they trust you a little bit more. And then another thing that you want to have on your site is either if you're receiving awards or if you're giving out awards, both of those establish authority and credibility with the early majority. The early majority, remember, they're the people on the other side of the chasm. So you have the people who are this tight little group that loves to try everything first, and then you have this gap, and then you have the early majority. Now, basically, the way you want to think about it is the group of the population that decides if you achieve traction, they're very skeptical. They're more risk averse. They want to know where you stand in the grand scheme of things. Is this a technological innovation that I will miss out on? Like, I will miss out on opportunities if I do not adopt? Or is this something I can kind of ignore because it's the latest buzz and by next week it'll be like ancient history? That's kind of the mindset that they have. Okay, and then the second part of achieving traction is how have you modified your offer at this point? So what you sell to your customers and how you sell it has to change over time. And when you are a young startup, this will be changing very, very fast. Do not worry, as your startup ages and your user base grows, the frequency at which you have to change also slows down. So the earliest Molo9 customers were people who just wanted to buy my notebooks. I don't know if you've seen, so in Molo9's library, we have playbooks and notebooks. Playbooks are updated to like the latest version. They go through very simple processes. They're much more organized. The notebooks, I literally took my notes, like I have notebooks behind me, and I dropped them into web pages and published them. And some people wanted those. They wanted to read them. Some people wanted this information that was in there for themselves. And others, they treated it like a data warehouse, and they included the material in like material that they gave to their own clients. So just as they would cite CBI Insights or CB Insights, SpyFu, Google Analytics, Hotjar data, they would also cite Molo9 data in their reports to their clients saying, hey, we think that this should be done next based on these data sources. But the notebooks, I don't know if you've read through them, the playbooks, they're put into like more everyday jargon and they use like more common terminology. The notebooks tend to be, what was one reader said, there's a very steep learning curve when reading the notebooks because they do assume that you have some marketing experience or you have marketing people helping you to understand what the notebooks are talking about. So next, and you could see how like the early majority would love this, but I'm sorry, the innovators and people who had been following me or following my consulting company for years, they loved having access to the notebooks. But they, thank you, Nikolai. You looked at the notebooks and they're really good. Thank you. I'm glad that you appreciated them. So with the notebooks, there's a small group that likes them, that loves them. Then you have the early majority who thinks that the notebooks could have been written in a foreign language because the marketing technology terminology in there can be so dense sometimes. So we had to go through and not only revise the notebooks and the playbooks, I had to then create Molo9 software, which looks at which notes within the notebooks people should actually be reading and at which point they should be reading them. And we also have other content that doesn't fit into the notebooks that's just in the software. But the software allowed people who are not as marketing savvy to be spoon-fed, okay, this is what you should do in phase 1. This is what you should do in phase 2. This is what you should do in phase 3. And it allowed people to see like a progression, step by step. This is how they're going to be. This is how they should implement things. And the reason we made these changes and added the software in is because salespeople came in who didn't want to hire a marketing person to bring them more leads. And other people who were not marketing savvy, but they wanted to figure out marketing for themselves. They came in and they said, hey, these notebooks are a little bit confusing. Could you possibly help me out? Like, what should I be implementing when? And that's when we created the software. But then we had another group come in. So do you see how Molo9 has changed as we had more people come in and buy things, buy from us? They've asked, hey, this is a little bit confusing. It would be easier if you could do XYZ, or it would help me a lot if you could add this on. There is some controversial advice about how many features you should build for current clients versus how many features you should build for future clients. And that's kind of another point where people get stuck with, they're not achieving traction because they're focusing too much on one group and not on another. With Molo9 though, so we had salespeople come in, and then after that we had first-time founders come in. Now, I don't know if you've seen the launch playbook, but that one was very quickly published and then redone to be step-by-step launch playbook, because it was originally just a notebook of like, here's all the notes that I casually flip through when I'm going to launch a company. And we had to transform it into, this is what you should do to launch your company, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, because with our most recent partnership with another platform that's promoting Molo9, we had a lot of first-time founders come in who wanted to use Molo9 to launch their company. And so I had a choice. Okay, do I tell them, hey, I'm sorry, but Molo9 wasn't built to help you launch. Molo9 was built to help existing companies grow. Or do I change our entire schedule for 3 weeks to figure out time and space to build out the launch playbook, get people to come in and give us feedback so that we know that the launch playbook can be applied to multiple types of business models and industries, and then add it to the Molo9 database. We completely shifted everything around. We looked at, okay, how much would it impact our current users if we didn't publish the latest growth hacks right now and instead published how to launch? And that's what we did. We had to make that change and make that call, which was not like a high risk call, but make that adjustment to accommodate the new users coming in. And that's where you'll see yourself if you're a founder. That's where you turn from like just the fun person who's having fun, like playing around, tinkering with your new innovation, to CEO who has to take care of a bunch of different users with different needs. Okay, so basically the whole point of that story is that each time a group came into Molo9, we had to figure out ways to build out new features and new offerings to make this new group feel happy with their investment. This is something that okay, so this is something that you want to be careful with, because some people get stuck in a negative innovation loop where they get really excited with creating new features and they forget about growing their company. So what we do is we have specific days where we're working on things to help our current users feel more comfortable on the platform. But then we have other days where we're literally focusing on customer acquisition and what can we do to make the next group of users feel more comfortable on the Molo9 platform. And it is constantly a juggle between the two. We had a few features that we added to Molo9 for people who asked for them. And I said, I'm sorry, but we can't make this part of the core software because it will destroy our retention rates, and we'll have lowered retention rates and it'll kill our business model. So I spoke to, I'm talking about the agency add-on. And so I spoke to the marketing agency owners who were asking for it. And I said, listen, like, I can give this to you for $100, but I cannot make it a core feature because I know you're a power user and you're not going to turn around and try to export all of the recommendations and then be done with Molo9. But some people are going to come in and use this export function and then leave. So I can give it to you as an add-on, but you're going to have to pay for it. And you're like, fine. So you'll have like different judgment calls that you have to make like that throughout your time. We have another thing that we're about to roll out that I know I'm going to get complaints on. You do get complaints when you roll out new features. Welcome to being a CEO of a startup. every time you roll out something new, you have people are going to give you negative feedback, people are going to give you positive feedback. The point is you want to make it safely over the chasm and just keep growing. Okay, so I think I've given you as much information as possible to understand what traction is, how we've been handling growing. Nikolai says, the launch playbook is pretty much the best and straightest line to launching that I've seen. Thank you. I appreciate it. That did take us a lot of hard work. I'm glad it's working for you. Cool. So, okay, that's in a nutshell, not really a nutshell. That's like what traction looks like. Those are some of the decisions you have to make when looking to achieve traction for your own company. So with your own diversification, I just walked through how Molo9, how we diversified as we brought in and went to work with new types of users. It is a little bit of a confusing decision to make as you're progressing, especially if you're a first-time founder. So I do have 2 guides that walk you through how to diversify what you offer as you grow. The biggest thing I want to say is that you're looking for traction. You're not looking to pivot. Those are 2 very different things. So when you're doing a product diversification for traction, you want whatever you're about to diversify into offering to build on what you already have. So we had the playbooks, then we had the software, and then we brought the playbooks back in, and we're constantly doing a dance between making sure that the development of one feeds the development of the other so that both are improving as we're making modifications to the 2. With your own diversification, you want to make sure that whatever add-on you're going to be offering to your customers, it's something that adds value to the way they use your current services and products. So you don't want to, here's an example. There's a member in the community who is a retired professional athlete, and she wanted to start offering marketing courses to people, but people are paying her for her advice as a professional athlete. Now, if she starts to offer marketing package to people, that's great, but it's a completely different target market. It's people that want marketing advice are in a completely different arena. That like triples her workload because then she's having to work on marketing material for this group and marketing material for that group. And she's having to, or doubles her workload. She's having to market to 2 new groups completely. Whereas when you add on features or add on like extra courses or bonus material, that it strengthens the relationship you have with your current users while helping your new users to feel loved and to feel accepted and supported in using your product. And that's kind of the goal you want with diversification. It's not, don't look at diversification as, oh, I should pivot into a completely new group, into a new target market. It's, no, how can you modify what you're currently offering to be more palatable for another group of people? So an example is with Molo9, we have this software. It's very like, it's expensive, it's heavy, it's not affordable for everyone, it's not accessible for everyone, it's it is a premium product. And then you have people who want access to this information, but they have a budget of $20. And so we do have a book that we're coming out with that's a simple PDF that people can buy for $20. And then ideally, the goal is after they've read through this book, their company will have grown to a point where they can afford to buy Molo9 and they join the Molo9 community. You want to look at, if you do diversify, you want to look at things that can help your prospective buyers to level up so they can access whatever your later products or service offerings are, if that makes sense. So I have 2 examples. I have 2 guides for you guys. Okay, So this is one way that you can diversify your offerings. And here's another way. Okay, so the second one is more for people who are making physical products. Let me actually show you my screen for a second. Okay, so if you see my screen, you see how the example I love here is Smile Club Direct or Smile Direct Club. They use, so they're the people who sell retainers, right? And now they have this option for you to not only get your retainers from them, but you also can get toothbrushes from them. You can get whitening kits from them. You can get flossing, like this flossing machine. You can buy toothpaste, but everything that they now offer, it adds on to their core product, so it doesn't take away from it. It's not going after a new group. It's going after the same group of people and just giving more valuable things to that group of people. Okay, so, all right. Now it is time to open up for questions to the audience. So before we do that, if you could just smash the thumbs up button, that really does help with the YouTube algorithm. And then we will transition to any questions that you guys might have. In the meantime, I'm going to drop the links to our Facebook group and our Telegram group. So you have those. You can join. Oh. Okay, so what questions do you guys have for me? It's Friday afternoon. This is why I want to change our live Q&As to a different day. Everyone's probably half asleep or making their Saturday night plans. Okay, no questions? That was a lot of information. I understand if you're like, holy crap. Yeah. Okay, if we have no questions, then I think we are going to end. Getting an error message. I think we're going to wrap things up a little bit early and everyone can enjoy their weekend ahead of time. I will be changing the date and time for our live Q&As because I think Friday afternoons are rough. So let me drop the link in here so that you know where to vote. For okay. Oh, here we go. The blue ocean strategy. You have to refresh my memory on that one. I read a book on that a few years ago. I think blue ocean is very is by the time you're corporate. Give me 1 second to create new demand. Okay, so I just refreshed on the blue ocean strategy. Okay, so the blue ocean strategy is the simultaneous pursuit of differentiation and low cost to open up a new market space and create new demand. Sorry, Nikolai, I just saw your question just came through. Okay, I think with the blue ocean strategy, you do need to have a higher budget. With this, what cost to open up a new market space, create new demand. I think my opinion on that is that you need to have a solid financial war chest in order to be able to do that. You also need to have a sufficient team that's able to cater to your current users while simultaneously another team is pursuing this new demographic. I think if I had more context on the exact company, on the company's like more data about the company, I could give you more feedback on like what I think of it. I have seen it done before. I have worked on projects actually where I wasn't doing blitz scaling for a new company. I was doing blitz scaling for a new product at a very old company. The plus side of, okay, so there's something called the halo effect, and basically what it means is that let's say you have a huge company, like let's say that you are Procter & Gamble, and you decide that you want to create a completely new product in a different niche. You can do that if people leveraging something called the halo effect. And the halo effect basically means that if your company, if it basically means that people have a very positive sentiment towards your brand. So anything else that you roll out, they're going to be open to adopting. The blue ocean strategy actually does not fall under the same, it does not need to use the diffusion of innovation concept or theory. It does not need to follow that same trajectory. Sorry, I'm going to get into some, there's no way to say this in layman's terms. I'm going to get into some very like MarTech speak for a second just to answer this question. Okay, so the blue ocean strategy, you do not need to work within the confines of the diffusion of innovation theory because it's playing on a different, it's leveraging different underlying psychological triggers. And at the end of the day, marketing really just is playing with human psychology. That's it. You're using psychological triggers to, or underlying psychological fields of influence to, okay, yeah. You're using underlying psychological influencers basically to guide people to realize either that the solution you have is ideal for them, or the solution you have is not something that's even should ever be on their radar. And with the diffusion of innovation theory, you're taking a completely new product to people and trying to get them to adopt it. You're taking a completely new person, a founder who might be known by a small group, and trying to get a giant group to adopt them. And so with the diffusion of innovation theory, you don't have the halo effect to go on. Now, the halo effect doesn't have to worry about the diffusion of innovation because it's not pushing something completely new to a completely new group. So let's say you're Procter & Gamble and you decide that you want to come out with a new line of something in a similar, or maybe not even similar, place within the grocery store. Pretty much if you walk into a grocery store in the US and you see Procter & Gamble's logo on something, you trust it. If you've had good experiences with Procter & Gamble. Now, that's what the halo effect basically states, is that if somebody's had a positive experience with your brand in one arena, they could have a positive experience with your brand in another arena. So now that we have all of the psychology behind why this could or could not work down, let's dive into blue ocean strategy. Okay, so if the risks of blue ocean strategy, if people love and trust your brand, when you go into a new niche, you want to make sure that you're hiring an A team to bring this new product to this, like, in this new place. Because if you're leveraging the halo effect to get people to trust you in this new arena, and they have a horrible experience, then they experience something called the horn effect, where they might trust you with the laundry detergent you make, but they're not going to trust you with the ice cream they're feeding to their kids because rat poison was found in the ingredients that were tested by some laboratory. And then they have the horn effect, and the horn effect basically means that now they have a bad taste in their mouth anytime they see your brand anywhere. So that is the risk that you run with trying to jump into a completely different market space. Does that answer your question? Sorry, I'm putting my hair up. It's way too hot in here with all the lights. Yes, no? Any other questions before we go? Oh, I should tell you, this is lagged. We do have some people in the Molo9 community who are hard of hearing, which means that as I'm recording, this actually isn't live. You're seeing it 3 to 10 seconds after it records, because that gives YouTube time to make auto captions so that those who are hearing impaired can follow along with the live Q&As. So if you type something in and then I respond several seconds later, that's why. Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, so when people want to get into marketing on their own, I ask them if they're avid readers, because I think the first thing that you should do is read as many human psychology books as you can get your hands on, just because that helps you to understand what works in marketing and why. Because at the end of the day, that's what you're selling to. And I think maybe that's why marketing has become more difficult over the years, is because initially you used to just be selling to humans, but now with all these ranking algorithms out there, you now have to make things that are optimized for humans and for bots to both see. That's what you'll hear marketers and some programmers talk about humans, and you only hear them talk about humans, and it's like, that's kind of weird, but it's because behind the scenes we talk about humans versus bots. And when you publish something, you have to publish it for human eyes, but you also have to publish it for bots, which means you have to publish it for the ranking algorithms to decide that it's important enough for them to show it to humans. Okay, any other questions, or are we gonna head out for the day? Everyone can have a fun Saturday, fun Friday night. I think that's our wrap. All right, so I will see you guys next week. Be sure to vote so we can pick a new time for live Q&As that works for everyone. All right, I will talk to you guys later. See you back online. Have a good weekend. Bye.